And we are live. All right. Awesome. It's actually working. Hey, everyone. I'm just going to do a little quick reading here. Welcome to DevRunner. My name is Paul. I'm an endurance runner and an RRCA certified running coach. And this is the first edition, the first live stream of Coach's Corner here on DevRunner. Today, I'm proud to be joined by the amazing Tony James. He's a fellow Masters runner, a fellow YouTuber, a freshly minted running coach. So I just want to say congratulations on that, sir. But before we jump in, I want to invite everyone out there to check out two separate series that I've got going on my channel, just to make you all aware of them. The first one is called 245 at 52. And that series follows me every week as I train toward a 245 marathon this coming December. And the second series that I've got going on my channel is called Chasing PRs, and that follows three different runners as they execute training plans that I've designed to get them to their individual racing goals this coming October. So with that said, that's enough about me, and I want to bounce this to Tony so that he can tell us a little bit about what he's got going on. What's up,
Tony? Paul, you just listed all that you're doing. When do you get time to eat and sleep?
Oh, I don't.
Now, I've still got an issue. You know, we've been friends for quite a while now, and we've done quite a few of these live streams, and I'll get to the introduction in a minute. But I still don't know if I like the word masters. It makes me sound old. I don't know if we can find a better word. I know here in the UK, they say veterans a lot. And
oh, really? Okay, that's a nicer term.
I don't know if I like those terminologies, because to me, I'm still 16 up here. So.
Oh, exactly. My hair's gone and all that. I'm 52 years old, but I still feel like I'm 25 and just gunning for everything.
My hair's going. That's why the hat's on. Yeah, I haven't taken to the full. Yeah, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. Right. So yeah, thank you for having me today, Paul. Absolute pleasure to talk to you, as it always is. But just to bring people up to speed, and thank you for the congratulations, because it was only this week. What day are we on now? It's Wednesday if you're watching this live. If you're watching it on the repeat, it could be any day of the week of any month. But as we're recording this, it's Wednesday, and Monday just gone, I've passed my final bit of my England athletics coaching course. It was the practical assessment. So it was taking runners through a dummy session, warm up, and then a main session, and actually doing all that and ticking all the boxes to make sure that we don't call them Muppets and things like that. And so we managed to pass that. We've done all the exam work. We've done the classroom work. So yeah, as of Monday, that's it. I'm an official coach, licensed, registered, and insured by England Athletics. So it's all looking good for the future.
That's awesome.
Running wise, just bring you up to date on the running. I don't know if you've been looking at my Strava, and if you want to join me on Strava, I do share all my runs. I don't hide anything. So if people want to come along and follow me on Strava, just do a search for Tony James. It's strava.com/athletes/Tony James. Come and join me on there. Two things I want to bring to your attention, Paul, that I'm quite proud of, and I know you've done some things that you're proud of as well. Sunday just gone, a local 10K here for the local hospice, which is a great organisation to help raise funds for. They did their annual 10K, and my fastest post-injury 10K, 43 minutes dead. So very pleased with that on that 10K.
Very nice. Well done, sir.
Might as well just point out that I am 54, okay, and I've only been running since I was 51. So we'll touch on this later on. We'll touch on this later on when we talk about planning, because it's not only your physical age you've got to take into consideration when you're planning. You've also got to take into your athletic age. How long have you been running? Exactly. Also, your training age. How long have you actually been training as well? So, yeah, just a bit of background there. So that's the main thing. And then the other thing is the Great North Run, which I did a couple of weeks ago, which, as you know, Paul, even being an American, you know that the Great North Run is the world's greatest half marathon, even though we didn't run on the same course this year due to COVID. But I'm pleased to report that this 54-year-old dragged his bones round in 1 hour and 36 minutes. So I'm quite pleased with that.
Awesome. Well done, sir. Well done, sir. And I did enjoy that whole training series, by the way, on your channel. And Tony, you just set me up perfectly, because I think everything that you just talked about when you're talking about chronological age, training age, running age, all these different numbers and all these different statistics that people throw around in the running community, that is exactly where I want to go. specifically around the marathon today. I'm hoping that the two of us can kind of put our coaching brains together and talk about the entire breadth of how you put together a training plan that's going to keep you healthy and that's going to get you strong so that you get to that start line confident that you are going to meet your goals. And, you know, a lot of the times, as we were talking just before we turned on the camera, there are a lot of very generic marathon training plans that are out there. And, you know, I don't want to poo-poo too much, but depending on what your current health is, depending on what your goals are, depending on, you know, and that could be a time goal, or it could just be something as simple as, I just want to survive that 26.2 miles. Your training plan is going to look very different. So I would like, over the course of the next, you know, like 55 minutes, however long it takes us to get through this, to talk about how we as coaches go about designing different types of marathon training plans depending on somebody's goals and their current state of health. And if anybody joins us in live real time along the way while we're talking here, we're more than happy to jump in and answer those questions in real time. But
don't forget, you can leave the questions if you are watching on the repeat. Please still put the questions in the comment because both myself and Paul will be diving back. When you leave a comment on YouTube, the creator actually gets a message that there's a comment there. So if you've got questions, please put them down there and we will get back to them in the future.
Exactly. We're more than happy to jump in and get you help and get you on your way in a healthy and strong way. So with that, Tony, I just kind of want to jump in. Let's just talk about let's cover like the biggest running audience first. Let's jump in. If you are sort of a lifestyle runner or a social runner, somebody who maybe goes out and runs like 10, 15 miles a week, and you've decided it's time to get in there. I'm going to go after that bucket list dream of running that first marathon, maybe my last marathon, in fact. Where do you start? What are your thoughts on how to get somebody ready for that first time?
Well, I think, first of all, the two things you've got to really get into is, one, get into the athlete's mind that the first big goal is to actually get to the start line fit. Exactly. No, if you come raring out of the blocks, and the generic plans that you can buy online or get online are, I'm not going to poo-poo and I'm not going to say they're rubbish and a waste of time, because they're a start. And if you don't know any better, because we don't know what we don't know, as a start, they're okay, yeah, and they generally will get you through the marathon. I'm just looking specifically at the London Marathon. Martin Yelling, who is the resident coach for the London Marathon, he's got some training plans on there. So they are based on getting you from wherever you start to that 26.2 miles. But a generic plan might not be the best thing for you. And I know with my coach training, and I presume it's going to be similar on your side of the Atlantic as well, the first thing that a coach does with an athlete is find out what they want to do, i.e. I want to run a marathon. But then you've got to really find out more about the person themselves, and you've got to complete an athlete profile. Exactly. You've got to go in, what's the person good at, what's the person not so good at, what's the strengths, what the weaknesses, are they carrying any injuries from years ago that might crop up? And you need to complete this profile. And as we mentioned earlier on, it's your chronological age, your training age, and all that's got to be taken into consideration. Because if you've only been running for a year, that plan might not suit you, because it may need to have had a couple of years build up before you get to it, if you see what I mean. So Absolutely. The good as a base for a start, and I won't poo-poo them and I won't say don't go down that route. But if you are serious about undertaking a marathon, and let's not sugarcoat this, a marathon is hard. It is a hard race. It will tax you physically, it will tax you mentally, and you need to be prepared, and you need that in your head before you even start. That is a lot of hard work. I've got a couple of friends who are running London this coming weekend, and they both said that's it. The amount of hard work I've put in over the summer, and they don't want to do that again. It is such hard work. So,
exactly. And there's a good point in what you just said. And that is that whether you are a newer runner or you are somebody who's been at it for a really long time, it never gets easier. Your goals get incrementally more ambitious. But when you're at mile 20, it doesn't matter if you are brand new or if you've run 20 marathons, you're still out there and you're still suffering.
It doesn't get easier, but it gets more enjoyable. Once you've done the first one, you know what's coming. And I know we've touched this on other live streams, but it really is with a marathon. You've got enough fuel on board that gets you about 20 miles. So everybody crashes at that 20-mile segment. And if anybody says they haven't hit the wall in some degree, I think they're lying. But everybody has that low point at 20 miles. But as soon as you get to 21, 22 miles, for some strange reason, your body just kicks in and you start going up again. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mindset has so much to do with the energy that you think you have. And let's just talk about this comment that just came up. Open Mind says, I've only been running 3 years. I have my first marathon a week on Sunday. I'm following a basic plan from the book. I still feel like a new runner. Well, the first thing I want to say about that is enjoy the fact that you are a new runner. Your first marathon experience, you will remember the rest of your life, even if you go on to run dozens more. Enjoy it. Don't worry so much about, I've got to make my time, I'm missing my splits, and all the things that the more experienced runners worry about. Just get out there and enjoy it, and especially the early miles. Look around, enjoy the sights and the sounds and the people around you, because once you get to those later miles, you'll start caring a little bit less about everything that's around you, and you'll just be looking endlessly for that finish line. But
I was just going to ask Open Mind, which marathon is it? Where are you running in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I wonder if it's London.
It's London this week. I'm doing Manchester. That's Manchester, UK, not Manchester, Alabama, a week on Sunday.
Hey, Michael Sanderson, by the way, how's it going?
But I think going back to Open Mind, it's your first marathon. I'll see you there. I'll be there myself.
It is.
Yeah. Believe in the plan. If you followed your plan, as I say, even if it's a generic plan out of a book, if you followed it, it will get you round. It will have done everything it needed to do to get you round the marathon. So believe in the plan. You've done the hard work. Enjoy it. And Manchester is classed as the second biggest marathon here in the UK. The crowds will be out, and you'll be amazed at that support that you get from the crowds, how that lifts you. It just gives you an extra burst of energy, especially when you get to those last 3 or 4 miles as the crowd start to get a bit deeper as you get closer to the finish. You will just go out, enjoy the experience, enjoy the day, enjoy the jelly babies, enjoy the people cheering at you. Do not enjoy the bloke who will be there at 3 miles in saying, you've only got a park run to go. No, forget him.
Yeah, exactly. And Open Mind, I just want to add that, you said in your first comment that it came out of a book, your training plan, and I want to echo what Tony just finished saying, and that's believe in that plan. If you work with a coach in the future for future races, whether that be a marathon or any other length of race, you will get a specialized training plan that works specifically for you. But believe in the plan that you use, because I know right now you said you're running in a week, so you're going through the taper madness as it's commonly known. So you're probably starting to think, have I done enough? Am I really in the kind of shape to cover that distance? Yes. Every professional, I don't want to say every, 99% of the training plans that are out there, if they're by a big enough company and a trusted company, they're going to get you through. So trust in that plan, hit that starting line with a smile on your face, because you're in for a journey that few people ever undertake, and you will have fun. Trust me.
That's a good point you mentioned there, Paul. When you're starting to struggle on a marathon, and we all struggle, I've done 5 marathon distances now, and it's still, and I've been going through the paranoia as well over the last week or two. You get that little pain in the bottom of your leg. Oh no, what's going on? My leg's going to fall off. We all get that. Even last week, I was having the thoughts, have I done enough? But it comes to us all. It will disappear. As soon as you get to the start line, you'll be fine. But what I was trying to say is, when you're out and it's getting hard, just think, what would Eliud Kipchoge do in this situation? And the answer to that is, he smiles. Watch Eliud Kipchoge doing any race, and you can see it in his face when he starts to struggle. But if you watch his face, he starts to smile. As soon as he starts to smile, he's back in the rhythm, he's back in the flow. So I think that's a tip you won't get in the books, but it is hard. You will be down. You will be, I was going to say on your ass, but I don't know if we can say that on YouTube. But when you are when you're at rock bottom, just think of what will Kipchoge do. He'd smile, and then you'll be fine. You'll be up.
Exactly. And let me tell you, Tony, that is truly, that's a real thing. When you put that big smile on your face, force it onto your face when you're feeling bad. It actually changes the chemicals that are flowing through your brain and actually lifts you up. I was on a 20-mile long run this past Sunday, pushing my limits there at the end, and I knew I had to pick up my pace and didn't feel like picking up my pace, but I put on a big old silly smile, and the next thing I knew, I was moving faster and it didn't feel so bad anymore.
I don't know if it's the same with you for Paul, but I know I've got another. This is a YouTuber's trick, so it might not go to everybody. But if I'm flagging doing a run and I've got the GoPro with me, if I get my GoPro out and I start talking to it, I start running faster.
I love it. I love it.
Well, no, I'm running faster again. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, believe in your plan. It will get you through. The reason I'm moving away from more generic plans is now it's really based on what you as the athlete want to achieve in a marathon. Some people want to complete, which is great, no problem at all. Other people, like him, are chasing silly times. So if you're chasing a time goal, for example, you really need to come away from that generic plan and make something more specific to you and what you want to achieve. And I think we'll touch more on that in a short while.
Exactly. So let's jump right in, Tony. I want to just to continue some of this. Open Mind was timed it perfectly because first marathon experience, etc. So let's talk about what are the commonalities between people who are approaching that first time marathon, who are not experienced with years of running under their belt, who maybe have done the 5K and the 10K, and they've, perhaps just kind of touched on the half marathon, and that inspired them to think, hey, maybe I can actually do a marathon. Say, just to kind of give you an idea of the type of runner I'm talking about. Let's say they've never gone more than 20 or 25 miles training in a week.
I think you're probably talking about the charity runners, the people who've got that charity place and they're doing it specifically to raise money for the charity.
Exactly.
Those are the guys who don't generally go out and do the big runs. So it is a totally uncharted territory for them. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. What would you recommend the person who is approaching? They just ran their first half marathon. They've capped out at 25 miles a week, say, in their heaviest training week up to date. They've been at it for, say they've been running for 2 years. And they just want a 5-hour marathon. That would make them more than happy. And, it'd give them that proud medal that they can hang on their wall and talk about every time their friends come over. So,
or everybody's senseless with it. We do.
Oh, I still do. That's why I have a YouTube channel, is so I can talk about it without driving my wife completely insane.
Now, if you are that type of person would probably more be like a social runner, somebody who's in a social running group, or maybe even in a club. But what I would suggest, if you are thinking of taking on one of these, it is a huge physical activity, is if you are lucky enough to be in a club or a social group, if you've got run leaders or coaches within that club, go and have a word with them. Now, especially if you are in a club where you're paying for membership, you will have coaches in there that you can approach as part of the club, and you're paying your membership for these guys. And go and have a chat with that coach and sit down and work out what your goals are and what you want to do. And then you can get that plan together. I know we're going to probably talk about this later on, but, as part of your training, you're doing high intensity weeks, you're doing low intensity weeks. But what's intensity? Paul, what is intensity?
Exactly.
Is intensity how many miles you run in a week? Is it how far do you run in your week? Is it how many hours of you run in your week? So it's questions like that you need to answer before you get started. What is your goal? Now, I think most generic plans will talk about doing 30, 40, 50 miles a week. But, is that 50 miles at 10-minute pace, or is that 50 miles at 7 minutes a mile pace, or is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you've got to look what's important to you and then work out your intensity with your specificity is the word that they taught us in training. No, you've really got to hone down to what you're actually after. So my half marathon I was using, and I'll name drop him because I like him. I took a generic plan off Ben Parks. Now,
gotcha.
It's a good plan. I like it. I've actually gone through and criticised it now as part of my training. But if you're presented with a plan that says, Paul, this week you need to do a 6-mile tempo run.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who's a social runner, what the heck does that mean to you?
Exactly. And this is where I kind of, using the case study that I kind of described, earlier, if you're like a 25-mile a week, that's been your max. You want a 5-hour marathon. You got a couple of years of just generic running under your belt. The thing to keep in mind, and I think this is true, Tony, across the entire spectrum, from your beginner runner to the guy who's trying to qualify for the Olympics. Your training plan has to be sort of subdivided into different sections. You always want to start off with a base building phase. Mm-hmm. Base building meaning that you're just trying to build your ability to cover more mileage.
Just before you go any further, I think this is probably a paragraph at the beginning of every plan that you purchase or use, be it from Runner's World or off somebody online. And I think a lot of people miss this. It normally says you need to be able to run 5 miles non-stop before you commence this plan.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, there's this misconception that go and get your 16-week training plan. Day one, you start running. 16 weeks later, you do a marathon. No, it's not quite like that. You need to have built up a base before you start the plan. And then the first 4 weeks of your plan are further base building before you start going down the rest.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because you're not going to go into a 16, 18 week, in some cases, even as little as 12-week training plan for a marathon. I don't recommend that, by the way. The idea is, let's say our runner, our little example imaginary runner here, who's topped out at 25 miles a week. Let's say a normal week for them is like 15 miles covered. So that when you start your actual training cycle, that's the mileage that you're going to have to cover in week one, generally speaking. There's going to be 15 miles, and then you're going to spend the first 4 or 5 weeks of your training plan building, probably from like 15 miles, depending on how aggressive the training plan is. You're going to build up to maybe as high as like 22, 23 miles with pretty much all easy running. All you're doing is trying to get your body to adapt to that level of constant exercise and get those muscles, get those tendons, get those ligaments used to the pounding, and you want to concentrate just on building that mileage. You don't want to start introducing speed. And that's the big point to remember here. If you start going, well, I'm 2 weeks into my training plan, I just ran 20 miles and I'm feeling super confident. I still feel great. So I'm going to go out there and kill it. Don't do it. Keep in mind that you still have like 14 to 16 weeks left in this plan, and you have to think long-term. This goes back to
the opening comment. The first priority is to get to the start line fit.
Exactly. And you have to think the long game. Tony, talk more about that. I just feel like I'm talking too much right now.
No, I totally agree with you. I'll come back to it in a minute. I was just looking in the comments there from the Swale runner who's running Helsinki. Very nice.
Awesome. That's going to be an amazing race.
Well, again, this, as they say there in the comments, they followed the plan. It'll be a bit cooler. Could be a good thing. I know my recent runs have been really warm here in the UK, and I can feel it overheating. So I think if you go out and you do a race at about 10 or 11, 12 degrees Celsius, I'm sorry, I can't work out the Fahrenheit off the top of my head, but if you add you about a 10 degrees on top of that for your running temperature, that's a nice running temperature, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see that you're actually looking forward to mile 20. that's pretty rare, but you'll depending on how long your longest long run has been in your training plan, you'll either ready for that feeling or you won't. But the only thing I want to say, just give me 1 second here. As Tony started at the beginning of this live stream, trust your training plan, because more than ever before in the entire training plan, if you've ever doubted your training plan, you'll never doubt it more than when you're at mile 20 and you're in that pain. I'm going to back away from the word pain here, Tony. I prefer the terminology extreme discomfort, because I want people, all runners, to understand there's a difference between pain and extreme discomfort. Extreme discomfort, you're supposed to feel that at 20 miles. Pain, as in sharp pain, stop. Do not push yourself any further. Get off to the side of the road and call it a day. But if it's just extreme discomfort, keep on pushing.
If it's the pain, your hamstrings have gone, your Achilles have gone, something else, your calves have gone, something like that, that's the extreme pain. Yeah, you're quite right. It is discomfort. If you've done the work in the plan, you should be able to get through it. There was something you said which has totally gone out of my head now. Oh, I think what you mentioned about building those building blocks, it goes back to, again, as coaches, we're taught this, but as general runners, you probably don't really pick up on it. But the way the body adapts is you work hard, you overload the body, you recover sufficiently, and your body adapts. So the next week you go out and you overload it a little bit more.
Exactly.
Let it recover and it adapts. And then third week, overload it a little bit more, let it recover and it adapts. And then you've got to basically on that fourth week is use it as a recovery week. And
there you go. I was waiting for that one.
I'm going to put it in numbers to try and explain this. We'll just keep it in low numbers. So on week one, you'll go out and run, and we're just talking total mileage for the week, not different types of runs, just total mileage. So week one, you go out and you run 20 miles. Yep. Week two, you follow the rule of 10%. You don't really want to push it any more than 10% increases, because that's pushing it in and you're getting into more injury prone. So second week, you go out and run 22 miles. So you've overloaded it more. Your body's gone, oh, this is a little bit harder than the week before. So that's your overload, and recover during the week. Your third week, go out, we'll up it again by another 10%. We'll go and run those 24 miles. So the body goes, oh, not done this before. It's worse than last time. And you've overloaded it. You recover and it adapts. So on the fourth week, you need to cut back. You need to have that, not stop. That's not the idea, but you need to recover. So what you would do is you'd go back, and on your fourth week, you'd run 20 miles, the same as your first week. And the body goes, oh, I've done this before. We can cope with this. This is nice and relaxed, and it's easier on the body. Then this is where the trick comes in. Week 5, you're going back to overloading the body. So the last heavy one you did was 24. So week 5, you should really do 24 again.
Exactly. And I wish we could very quickly switch screens here so I could show people a few examples of some training schedules, because Tony just nailed it. That's exactly the way you build. And Tony, I just want to address Michael Sanderson's comment here, because he says he lives up near Hadrian's Wall. There's no flat land. How do you deal with training for speed and tempo runs, etc., when it's hard to find a flat place to run fast? And before we get into exactly answering you, Michael, I do want to talk a little bit about how you've timed your question so perfectly, because we just finished talking about sort of the first phase of a marathon training cycle, where you want to concentrate purely on building your ability to cover more distance, your base building. Mm-hmm. After 4 or 5 weeks of base building, what you want to do, after every 3 weeks of building, you take that down week, like Tony said, and then you start building again. You continue to push your body, and that's called super compensation. It allows your body to reach a new level of fitness. And that's the way that you build a good, generally speaking, a good marathon training cycle will go up, 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 down a little bit, up, 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 further, down a little bit, up, 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 down a little bit, and then it's time to hit your taper, which is when you start bringing the intensity and your mileage down in order to be well rested for race day. With that said, Michael, I'm very excited by your question here, because the second phase after your base building is the strength building phase of your training cycle. And that's where you start to introduce, believe it or not, hills, tempo runs, and fartleks or strides, which are just short sort of, you pick up your speed over the length of like 100 yards and then drop off, and then just either take a little break before you do another one, or you just kind of jog it out slowly as an active recovery. So that's the second phase of a good marathon training cycle. And now that I've talked far too much again, I'm going to bounce this over to Tony to talk in more detail about that.
Well, you can't talk too much, Paul, because it's your channel. You can talk all day. Right. First of all, Michael, Hadrian's Wall, lovely part of the world up there. Past Hadrian's Wall on the way to Newcastle the other week for the Great North Run. Brilliant. No flat routes. How would you recommend training speed? The thing about hill work is speed work in disguise. Running up that hill is exactly the same as doing an interval on the flat. In fact, it's probably even more beneficial than running on the flat, because not only are you building up your strength and your speed, but you're building up the muscles. There's more work going into those muscles pushing you up that hill. So running up the hills and doing your speed work on the hill is really good for you. So don't worry about there being flatness around. So just get out there and go and do the speed work on those hills. It'll do you no end of good running up and down those hills. The thing about intervals is it depends on which one of the three energy systems that we have on board our bodies, the lactic, the lactate, and the aerobic system. If you don't mind, I'll just quickly go into it, because there's a whole load of science behind it, and I don't want to do that.
Oh, of course. No, I love this kind of background stuff, because these are the kind of things that you're not going to find in a generic book or a generic plan, and people don't understand why they're necessarily doing a particular workout. Yep. You, Tony, are about to sort of enlighten everybody and tell them why certain workouts at certain points in your training cycle are important. So please take it away.
Right, we've got three energy systems, as I say, the lactic, the lactate, and the aerobic system. The lactate system is, I think the easiest way to describe that is that's the stored energy. It's already energy. It's not glycogen that needs to be broken down. It is already energy that is in your muscles. It's the energy you use when you get started. You know, when you put that first foot forward and you start running, that energy is already stored. It's a stored battery. And that system generally works and powers the body for about 8 seconds. So that's your sudden burst of speed at the start. Or, you know, when you're in a group of runners and you want to get past them and you've got a sudden burst of speed, you're tapping into your lactate system, that stored energy, and it's a burst. And your big sprint finish at the end, that's your lactate system as well. So that is already stored energy. It doesn't use lactic acid. It doesn't use oxygen. It is purely stored energy. And one thing I've started doing, and I found this really beneficial, is doing hill work. And I did a video on this on my channel. And basically, it's just running up a hill for 8 seconds at maximum speed, because that works this lactate system, gets the body to discharge that energy quicker. It's the brain's telling the muscles to use more fibers, because we can then go into the fibers in the muscles. You got twitch. There's slow twitch.
Slow twitch. There's slow twitch, and there's two different types of fast twitch.
Yeah, slow twitch, and then fast twitch. Basically, the body is lazy. All right. So when the brain tells the muscles to work, it's saying just use this amount of fibers because that's all we need. And as they tire, it says, well, let's use these next ones. Let's use these next ones. Yeah, let's use these next ones. But doing these sudden sprints, these about 8 seconds, the brain is suddenly saying, come on, guys, we need them all. And it's lighting up the whole muscle. So you're getting more energy at your disposal quicker. So it's lighting up more fibers, and it's helping you run better. So that's just a quick overview. You probably get a lot more technical in that. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of 8-second hill sprints just to try and work on that lactic system. Right, moving on to the lactate system. This is the energy system that takes you from about 8 seconds to possibly a minute, 2 minutes. Yeah. And this is where the body starts to use lactic acid to break down the glycogen to turn it into energy. Yeah. Now, I must admit, all these three systems are used all the time, but depending on where you are in your run and what you're training or whatever it is, it uses different ones at different places. So once you've used that stored energy, the body kicks in, producing the lactic acid, and starts to break down the glycogen into energy for you to use. And then once you get into the longer, once you've got that 2 minutes indefinitely, because you've got enough stored energy in body fat in you to run for weeks without stopping. You know, physically can't, but the energy's there for you to do so. Exactly. So that's the aerobic system. That's why we're doing all these long runs and all that type of work. So the body uses its main engine on that type of thing. So this is why you look at these different types of sessions to use to work the different type of energy systems. But when you've got them all working in sync, it makes running easier. I think it's the best way to put it.
Exactly. And Tony, you kind of set me up here for kind of. I'm going to pull back a little bit here and go back a little bit to Michael Sanderson's question. I'm just going to flash it back up on the screen here, where he's talking about the hills and all that kind of stuff. And the point I want to make is that it's not only very good for you, as Tony said, not only probably equally as good for you to be running sprints on hills, but it's actually safer for your muscles because of kind of the way your body's leaning, and you're not going to get up to those massive speeds that you're going to get up to when you're on a track, et cetera, et cetera. So not only are you less likely to injure yourself, but you're building muscle faster as well. So it's hugely beneficial. And
before you go on, Paul, if you've got an Achilles injury, running uphill is the only running you can do, because your foot is reaching the floor quicker and not extending your Achilles as much. So it's not hurting you. Sorry, shin splints. That's it. With your shin splints, if you run uphill, you won't have any problems with shin splints. As soon as you run downhill or on the flat, forget it. You're knackered. If you just run uphill, you can run uphill with shin splints.
Exactly. No, wonderfully said, and it's a good point because that's especially in newer runners, that's a very common injury. So well said, sir, and thank you for pointing that out. So what kind of where I want to take this next is, before we start getting into true speed work, I want to talk a little bit more about like these first two stages of marathon training. When you go from base building into strength building, that's where you're running your hills, that's where you're starting to introduce tempo work and doing sort of more the beginning of short burst speed stuff, where you're doing, like I said earlier, strides or just kind of fartleks, where you're just playing with your speed in the midst of a longer run, speeding up, slowing down, whenever you feel like it, type of thing. And that's just getting your body used to things. But the huge benefit to those first two stages of a marathon training cycle is the fact that this is a good opportunity for me to make a point here that there is no such thing as junk miles. When you're running slow and you're base building, what you're actually doing physiologically, what's happening in your muscles is you are building more blood pathways to reach the different fibers of your muscle. Not only that, but every single muscle fiber is creating more mitochondria, which means you're able to consume oxygen faster, more efficiently, which means you can keep on firing those muscles and they don't tire out as quickly. So you're doing massive, massive amounts of benefit to your body when you're going slow and going long. And then when you start to introduce hill sprints, everything that I said in the last few minutes, that's where you're starting to say, hey, slow twitch muscle fibers, even though you last longer, even though you're going to see me through the 26.2 miles, you're not going to be able to do it alone. So what we have to do is start waking up these fast twitch muscle fibers, of which, as I said earlier, there are two different types. There's fast twitch A, which is kind of what Tony was talking about a little bit earlier, where they're the guys who just want to fire fast and just give you that explosive power and speed. You want to come off the line fast, or you want to run a 5K, you're using those fast twitch type A's like crazy. But here is the good news for all of us slower marathoners who you want to go faster, but you're not touching the kind of speeds that an 800-meter guy or a miler guy or even, like a 5K specialist has to touch. But the good news here is that there is a second type of fast twitch muscle fiber, and they are convertible. Even though they remain and will always keep a lot of the characteristics of a fast twitch powerful muscle fiber, a lot of them can be converted to act a lot more like a slow twitch fiber. And that's important because, as Michael Sanderson and Swale Runner and Open Mind were saying, hinting at earlier in the broadcast, when you get to that 20-mile mark in the marathon, you need to start calling on everything you've got to get through that last 10K on the marathon. And the more slow run, the more strength type of running that you do in the early stages of your marathon training block, the more of those fast twitch fibers you start to convert into the behaving like slow twitch, so they'll last longer and they'll see you through the last of those tougher miles in the marathon.
Running efficiency. That's
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I just noticed there we got a question from Michael Bartlett. What's that?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were finished talking about all that before I brought this up on the screen, but here's another great one.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. 120 miles.
So yeah, go ahead. Take it away.
I was just going to say, have you read the book Running with the Kenyans?
I have not. No, not yet.
It's an English guy, a reporter, decides he wants to improve his running, so he goes and he gets the whole family up sticks and goes to Kenya to go and run with the Kenyans because they're considered to be one of the best running countries. And he says he goes out for his first run, meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning with the people from the village to go out for a run. And he said he was a good runner at the time, so he went out for this run. And basically, the older women in the village stayed with him to keep him company.
That's funny. Yeah,
so, yeah.
I mean, and I think you're kind of alluding to the fact that
the elite runners run and run.
Yeah, exactly. When you become a more experienced distance runner, when you're somebody who's been through the grind of a marathon or ultra marathons for that matter, and I'm talking without experience when it comes to the ultra marathon world. I ran
26.5 miles. So that class has been an ultra.
Exactly. There you go. So, when you've done it enough times and you've been, more important than running the actual race, is the fact that you've been through the training cycle so many times. And you're then able to progress to the point where you can start pushing your body harder in that training cycle sooner. And Michael, what you're seeing when you look at like the Kipchoge's and the, I mean, you name it, the Sarah Halls, the people who are just good at covering mileage fast. They've been through the grind so many times that they're able to just kind of get up there and grind hard for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks at a time before they even have to take a down week. Whereas, somebody who's newer, as a coach, Tony and I would be hard pressed to push a newer runner to go past 3 weeks of building in a row before you get your down week. And even if we didn't tell you to do it, trust me, when you're in a marathon training block, after that first 3 weeks, you're going to be screaming at your coach to take that down week anyway, even if it's not part of your plan. So that's the difference there, is they've made so many of those physiological adaptations already that they are able to push their bodies harder for longer before they have to take that down week. And go ahead, Tony.
No, you're going to say, as we're talking about working hard for 3 weeks, then a down week. When you're Hi, Chris. Good luck for Sunday, mate.
Chris, how's it going now?
But these elite runners, their running cycle looks totally different to the non-elite average runner like us. It's a totally different world. They're working a lot harder. They're doing 2-3 runs a day. I think Kipchoge goes out and, well, let's look at the ultra runners like Scott Jurek. He would go out and do 24 miles before breakfast, go out for a run at lunchtime, and then do another 24 miles in the evening. So don't worry. I think I say this to most people. Don't worry what other people's races are, what other people's training are. It's all about you. It's only you and the clock. So whatever, don't worry about what other people are doing.
Exactly. You want to be better than you were yesterday. Don't worry about everybody else, because that takes the joy out of everything if you're comparing yourself to somebody else. So, just be better than you were yesterday. That's all that matters.
Something's just jumped in my head then. We're talking about doesn't matter what type of runner you are, whether you're a new runner, you've been running for years or what. But when you start that marathon block, do you just go into it and start following a plan, be it a plan from your coach or be it a plan you've taken out of a book? Do you just go into to do it? Do you do any testing of yourself beforehand? No.
Exactly.
Do I go and do a park run and see how fast I can do it? Right, that's my benchmark time at week 1.
Exactly. Set a baseline.
Yeah. Do I retest myself in 5-6 weeks and see what the improvement's been, if there's been any? That's what a lot of casual runners forget to do. They forget to go back and do that testing. I know again, runners who are chasing times, they do go out that. They will go and run that time trial for 10K. Will run a 5K time trial. But it's testing how the training has gone. I think a lot of casual runners forget to do that.
Exactly. And if you come as a newer runner, if you come to a coach for the first time for help in reaching your goals, that's one of the first things that you'll see in that initial questionnaire that you get from your coach. As Tony was alluding to earlier, that's one of the big questions is, when's the last time you raced, what distance, and how did you do, and how did you feel when you were done? Because we want to start you out. Any good coach or any good plan is going to start you out not just with the mileage that is already achievable by you, not necessarily very comfortably. You want to kind of start in a place where you're right there on the edge. I don't want to say on the edge, because that kind of implies that you're pushing your luck a little bit. But you don't want to start down way below where your baseline is. So that's why, as coaches, we want to know what your best recent accomplishments in running are, so that we can start you out in the right place. Let's see what we've got.
Michael's on about heart rate.
My heart rate is 148. Okay. However, when I run slower at 8-minute pace, my heart rate is similar, 154. Why would they be so similar? That is because you are finding the zone, the aerobic zone within your abilities that where your body operates most efficiently. So it looks like you've kind of stumbled into finding the place where your body operates most efficiently, and that's not just because of the physical way that you move, though that has a lot to do with it, but because of your past training and the physiological adaptations that your muscles and your lungs and your heart have made because of your past experience. I would venture to guess, Michael, that you've spent a significant amount of time doing sort of tempo work and high speed work, and your body is able to take on that load without having to do a lot more heart and lung wise to get you there. So that's why consider yourself lucky, because you're well along, and it takes years to get there. Everybody who's a newer runner who's watching this either now or later, that's what you're seeing on screen there, described in Michael's question, doesn't come overnight. That comes from years, literally years of slowly adapting, slowly pushing yourself, keeping yourself on those tempo runs and those speed days, keeping yourself right on that safe edge, hopefully not going over too far, because otherwise injury and downtime. But Tony, talk a little more about that.
I was just going to ask, actually, how are you measuring this, Michael? Are you going off what your Garmin's saying on your wrist, or do you have a proper heart monitor? because as you know, the Garmin's on your wrist with that little pulsy light in there sometimes can be only about 60% accurate, but the better way to measure it yourself is obviously with the heart rate monitor, which still has a degree of discrepancy in it. And the only true way to find out your heart rate is actually to put you in the lab and tie you up to the ECG machine while you're on a treadmill. So I'm not poo-pooing what you've done. I think it's brilliant that you've managed to get the heart rates and what have you down. But it might be, if you're just going off your Garmin watch, that little bit of fluctuation is just fluctuation in your heart rate's probably around the same, depending on the pace.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Michael, you've done a lot of work, obviously. You know, without knowing much in the way of details, I would say that you're probably somebody who's been running for a good number of years. I'd love to actually see your response in real time if you hear that. But Tony,
we'll be on Strava afterwards, going on to Michael's Strava profile. Because I know he follows me and I do follow him, so we'll go on and see if we can find his heart rates.
Yeah. I'm familiar with Michael. I just, I don't know enough about his running history at this point to kind of pull that out of my memory. But Tony, just to keep things moving along here, because man, we are we're talking up a storm and time is flying by. I want to get us to the third stage of marathon training, where you come out of strength building and you start to move into the speed phase. And speed phase being characterized by, if you're a more experienced runner, you start hitting the track for interval work. And if you're kind of a first or second time marathoner, you may not necessarily ever see the track, but you're definitely going out there. You're running tempo runs regularly, and you are doing, sort of surges in the midst of long runs to build your aerobic capacity. Basically you're building more mitochondria in your muscle cells, and you're building new pathways for your blood to flow to those muscles to feed them the oxygen they need, so that you're able to push your limits to higher speeds and maintain those higher speeds for longer. This is the tough part. This is the part that makes everybody go, "Oh God, I can't take it anymore. I can't wait for the taper." I'm going
to ask you a question, Paul, about interval training. We know the interval itself is the actual recovery bit between
I shouldn't say interval. I should say the repetition section.
Interval. Right. So here's a question for you, and I'll be interested to get your opinion from your side of the Atlantic on this. But for example, an interval session is 15 times 1 minute run, 1 minute recovery. Okay. Do that 15 times. Okay, you with me so far? Now, the way the body tires and the way the body fatigues, your first 2, 3, maybe 4 repetitions will be of a similar time. But if you carry on doing that, by the time you get to your 10th, 11th, 12th, your repetition is going to be nowhere near the same amount of time you did it in at the beginning, because fatigue set it.
Yep.
Because you've only took that 1 minute. So it's not really working the same as it should. So if it's fatiguing you that much at the end, wouldn't it be more beneficial just to go for a long run? If you see what I mean? Because we've got overload, we've got recovery, but it's not recovering enough. So your times are actually slowing down. Whereas if so for example, if you did your first 4 repetitions with your 1 minute recovery between them, then you 5 to 8, we say a minute and a half recovery between them, your repetitions would still be near enough the same. And as you get further down, maybe it needs a 2 minute recovery.
Exactly.
Is this a misconception that we've always gone through, that this is the way we do it? You do those 15 and 15 1 minute recoveries, but it's not doing the same good as what it should be. So should we be taking more recovery time between those repetitions, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, now, Tony, you bring up a very, very good point, and something that is misconceived by a lot of even very experienced marathon runners. And excuse me, I'm just worried my dog is about to lose his mind and start barking. He's looking out the window like there's something going on that he doesn't like. Now, as far as like extended numbers of repetitions go, I always recommend, especially for runners who are approaching this kind of interval work for the first time, take big breaks in between those intervals, because even though it may seem a touch on the excessive side in those early repetitions, trust me, by the time you get to the bottom of that list, you'll be thankful that you've got that longer recovery time. And beyond just the fact that it'll feel better with those longer recovery times, it's also important because it's important in the sense that the longer recovery times, you hear a lot of runners saying, I don't like to take a lot of recovery, I just like to hammer it out. Mm-hmm. You have to realize that you're hitting your energy systems in a completely different way if you just kind of keep hammering with very short breaks. That serves a very good purpose. But the reason, especially newer runners, want to leave those big breaks in between those repetitions is because it allows your heart rate to come down. It allows your muscles to recover just enough that by the time you get to repetition number 9, number 10, maybe even up to 12, it allows you to move faster than you would if you were tired out. Because it may be, if you're taking shorter breaks in between those repetitions, you may be wiped out because your heart is just pumping like mad because you can't catch your breath, but your muscles are still like, well, I'm ready to go. If it wasn't for my heart, I'd be ready to go. And so you want to give your heart and your lungs a chance to fully recover so that you can push those muscles as hard as you can. And you just can't do that because your heart and your lungs are going to limit you. So take those big breaks. It's going to allow you to approach VO2 max, which, whether you know it or not, the harder you work your maximum oxygen uptake system, the more you maximize that week after week in the latter stages of your training cycle, the faster you become. That's the fastest way to get fast. if you know what I'm saying. You can ride a little bubble, and I've told this to my clients before. If you time it right, if you can get like 6 to 8 weeks of track workouts where you're pushing your VO2 max consistently week to week, you will get faster very quickly. But it's dangerous. It's a dangerous game too, because you could blow out a hamstring. You could blow your IT bands could say, I've had enough of this. So you got to be careful. But that's why you want to get to the end of this. That's why you want to take those longer breaks as a beginning runner. There are also benefits to keeping those rest intervals in between repetitions very short, but that works different systems. But if you want to get fast, if you want to get fast quickly, take those longer breaks. Tony, I've talked too much again.
No,
please please take it away.
No, I think that rounds it up nicely. That if you're doing lots of repetitions with very short intervals between them, you're doing exactly the same work as if you would be if you're going for a long run. And to be honest, going for the long run is less stressful on the body and you're less likely to injure yourself. So it's something that it's come down through the years. It's myth. It keeps coming down. We've always done it that way, so we'll always do it that way. But sports science is changing. So recovery, regardless of what work you're doing, is really important. Working with clients, when a coach sees somebody the following week for the next session, a good coach will be asking, well, how's it been this week? How have you slept okay? Have you been angry? These are all things that are showing that you're too fatigued and you're too overworked. Exactly. And that you're not picking up on. Can't stress enough the importance of sleep. That's the best.
Thank you.
Tool we have in our bodies to help us improve as runners is sleep. And if you're the same master's age as myself and Paul, you will know the benefits of having a granny nap in the afternoon.
Exactly. I tell the guys that I'm training right now, if you can sneak in a nap, do it. 20 minutes will work wonders. And Chris, that running guy, brings up an amazing point here. Doesn't the reps on intervals just come down to running at the correct pacing to start with? Absolutely. Tony and I.
That's the question. Is it pacing or is it effort?
What? Yeah, I mean, kind of. In all truth, Tony, I kind of see that as a very similar thing when you're talking about track work. Tony and I have access as coaches who've been through a program to a whole lot of tables that, actually, let me reach over here for a minute. For the average consumer, if you want to be able to check your, how does your intended marathon pace break down to the speed at which you should be running your intervals, whether they're 400s, 800s, 1600 meters and on up. There are a lot of tables in this book and elsewhere that will give you what your target times should be depending on what interval you're running. And I can't stress enough that sticking as close to those times, not trying to be a superhero and run 5-10 seconds faster around the loop of the track than is recommended, all you're doing really is risking injury, increasing the chances that you're going to hurt yourself and never make it to that start line fresh and healthy, as Tony started this whole conversation with that warning. So you really, really want to be careful with the paces that you choose when you're doing track work and stick to them, because varying by very small increments can not only put you at greater risk for injury, but possibly defeat the purpose of the workout anyway, because you may push yourself into alactic, zones where you're not helping your muscles and your lungs or heart to adapt. You're just kind of maxing your heart out and hurting yourself. So it's very, very important to be careful with that stuff. There you go. See, Chris just exactly. Thank you, Chris, for that. So there's a real world example. And 5K is a great way to judge your track paces, because 5K is a trying experience, a highly where you're beyond your lactate threshold, and you're pushing. It's the kind of thing where nobody can hold their 5K pace for over an hour. if you're a super athlete, maybe. But
for an endurance runner, a 5K is your sprint, really, isn't it? That's what you start thinking of it as, instead of just going out for a sprint, which is your 5K. If you're used to doing the long miles.
Exactly. So Tony, here we are. We're past an hour already. We've talked about sort of the 3 phases of the marathon training cycle. The only thing we haven't touched on is the taper, which deserves its own live stream. Perhaps we can touch on that in the very near future.
I would still, let's just be very brief on it, and we'll, as you say, let's come back and talk about it in further detail. Mm-hmm. But the thing about the taper is, if you go out and you do a long run, be it your 20 miles, 22 miles, 23 miles, whatever it is, your last long run, that run will fatigue you and it will take you time to recover from it. So That's why we have the taper, to actually help you recover. Now, it doesn't mean don't go out and run again. You can go out and run, but just slow it down, take it easy. You're going out just to keep the muscles and legs and what have you turning over, keep the heart rate and the aerobic side ticking, but you're not going out to expend too much energy. But to give you an example, when I first ran the London Marathon, I picked up an injury, and I went the day after the marathon. I went to see my physio, and he prodded and pulled me. He said, "This is exactly what the problem is." I said, "Great, can you fix it?" And he said, "No, not until the swelling goes down." I said, "What swelling?" He goes, "The swelling from doing the 26 2 miles." Yeah. So that is the same as when you're doing your long runs leading up to the marathon. Your body is getting battered. It is swelling up. You are injuring yourself, but not injuring yourself to where it's hurting. If you see
exactly what you're doing is producing a lot of little micro tears in your muscles that you're supposed to give yourself a couple of days after those long runs and any harder effort. That's what the easy days are for. You're actually just You're just supposed to be running real slow, keeping the muscles loose and allowing all the oxygen to kind of permeate those muscles and heal them. That's the whole, there's no such, I'll say it again, there's no such thing as junk miles. Every run serves a purpose, you know. So
don't ignore the taper. Do not ignore the taper. If it's 3 weeks,
don't ignore the taper.
I wouldn't go less than 2 weeks. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're a newer runner, in fact, I would say, you know, a 3-week taper is where it's at. You know, as you become more experienced, if you've got, you know, 4 or 5 marathons under your belt and you kind of know where it's at, and you know your body well enough, then you might want to toy around with the idea of a 2-week taper instead. But you'll know if that works for you when you get that far along. So, Tony, I can't thank you enough. You know, it was so great to speak with someone who, you know, you're a newly minted coach, but the thing is, you've known this information for a long time. I'm sure you've honed your skills having gone through the process of becoming a coach, but you've been somebody who I've looked to on YouTube for a long time for sage advice. And I want to thank you for joining me here. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I think we covered a lot of detail and answered a lot of questions that especially newer marathon runners have. So thank you, sir. And before we get out of here, I want to give you an opportunity again for everybody who was not with us at the beginning to talk about everything you've got going on your channel and why everybody wants to get there and subscribe.
Well, I need everybody to get there because I want to become monetized.
There you go.
I want to leave my job and be a coach and YouTuber full time. So yeah, that's the tongue-in-cheek version. But yeah, basically, I like running. I like passing on the knowledge, and I've got my channel there. So please come and search me, Tony James Running. I'm sure that Paul's going to put a link in the comments below before he goes to bed. So please, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel. Also subscribe to Paul's channel as well if you haven't done so.
Appreciate it.
No problem at all. Michael just says there's thanking us both. So yeah, thank you for being there, Michael. Really do appreciate the support that you've given myself and Paul over the last few months. It's been brilliant. Thanks very much indeed. Chris, the running guy, as I said earlier on when he turned up, he's running the London Marathon for charity this Sunday. I'm sure if you go over to his channel, you'll find out his running number and you'll be able to follow him on the app. So please do give him all the support. And who was it earlier on who's running the Manchester Marathon?
Yeah, we've got the Swale runner joined us. Open Mind joined us.
Open Mind who's running the Manchester Marathon. If you go onto my channel, I will let you know what my running number is. So if you see me down there, please come and say hello. That'll be great. Oh, quickly, Paul, you wanted to know about in my video the other week where I was talking about the daughter's car got stolen.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's a funny story, but it's not. It's heartbreaking. I was out doing some hill sessions, pulled up because I got a pain in my ankle, which was nothing, a bit of ice, and we sorted. Then got a phone call from the daughter in tears. The car's been stolen. Panic. Went to where she was. We actually got some CCTV footage from across the road, and somebody turned up with a low loader and just dragged it onto the low loader and drove off with it.
Wow.
Right.
Organized, huh?
The daughter put this on Facebook, scummy. And what happened was later that day, the low loader guy came back, knocked on the door and said, some guy asked me to pick up his car where he'd lost the keys.
Wow.
I'll take you to where I took it. So she goes with somebody to have a look. And a car is hidden out of view at this yard.
Wow.
And so she phones up one of the units in the yard and says, my stolen car's in your yard. So a guy came down, unlocked the gate. She got in the car and drove off.
Good stuff. At least it ended well. I'm very glad to hear that.
Social media worked perfect.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome. There is a positive side to social media, I should say.
But the thing is, this makes me laugh to this day. The guy who stole the car, when he turns up in the morning, does he think someone stole the car?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's not running related, but it's just one of those things. So yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm glad all's well that ends well, sir. So thank you for sharing that. And everybody who's participated with us today, who's asked questions, everybody who's kind of kept us true to form and kept us on topic. Thank you so much. Everybody who's watching this afterwards, as Tony said earlier in the broadcast, still feel free to drop your questions. Tony and I are more than happy to address your questions regarding marathon training at any time in the future. So, go crazy down there.
We might do a video on it as well.
Exactly. Give us some ideas for future broadcasts. And with that said, everybody, I just want to thank you. I want to say, get healthy, stay strong, and keep pushing. Peace out, everybody. Well, there it is. Peace out, everybody.
Or as I say on my channel, let's get running.
There you go. All right, everybody, we're out of here. Have a good one.
See you again soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.